Buckle up, buttercups. It's time to get down to business. It's the Totally Legitimate Business Podcast. Totally legit.
It's the Totally Legitimate Business Podcast, the only podcast, your favorite podcast with the stupidest intro. Today, I'm joined by an elementary school cohort,
That's
Nick
right.
Sessions. Welcome to the
thank you.
show.
How many people do you have clapping? And
It's too many, and they're all really angry. It's too many to fit in this room comfortably, you know.
I have a lot of apologies to make to a lot of people. This could be about anything. We'll find out.
This might turn into a therapy session. Who knows what's going on? So, what have you been up to these past 25 years?
All kinds of wonderful things. I've just I have a son now.
Nice. You did it.
Well, thank you. Yes, the little man is here. He's sitting off to the left with his mom, my amazing wife Laura. She's incredible, and she also has two children. They came along, Corey and Lydia, and they're amazing. They're all super cool kids, and I'm also a
Nice.
child myself, so it works out pretty well.
Yeah, it's great. It's perfect.
Do you want to see this guy?
Sure. Let's meet him.
He just threw up.
Oh, cool. I feel the same way, so I can't blame him, you know.
Yeah. But you go ahead on in, sir. You go ahead on in. Where would you like to start today?
Well, I mean, okay, so I remember even when we were in elementary school, you were always on the horror movie tip. I remember you putting me on to basically all the classics. I guess let's kind of start there. Is that something that as a kid you inherited yourself? Did you inherit that from like your parents or your brother? Like what got you into the whole horror movie thing?
Well, I think we were at kind of a fun age in the '90s where part of it was like late night, just Joe Bob Briggs on TNT, Monster Vision. I mean, obviously my dad and my
absolutely.
brother, us watching all those together. But I mean, just Sci-Fi Channel, all those things were just constantly playing amazing horror movies like Return of the Living Dead. That was the first place I ever saw that. That's one of my favorite movies of all time. But yeah, that's probably where it all started, was late night television as a kid and watching things that I probably shouldn't have, but they made me who I am today, and that's okay.
Yeah, right. That's all right.
Yeah.
I'm just gonna guess. Do you have a horror movie tattoo?
Yeah, I have several.
Nice.
Yeah.
I have a couple. All my friends who are super duper into horror movies have incorporated horror movies into their tattoos. I've got one buddy who's like one of his whole sleeves is just all iconic moments from horror movies.
Oh yeah, I got the pilot from Dawn of the Dead there.
Hell yeah, that's awesome.
Flyboy. So yeah, that's my favorite one that I have.
That's awesome,
yeah.
dude. So like you developed this affinity for it, and I see that you started the TikTok. Go ahead and give the shout outs to your TikTok out. What got you inspired to start talking to people about radio shows? Because I personally, something I have also had an affinity for, entertainment production, the history of entertainment production, and that era is so interesting to me, because it really is like the first serious mass media, and everything was just a guy in a little box with all these little things that made sounds, and then he walked over here. I love it. There's something about it that has always entertained me. And at some point in college, I remember I was working at like a public access, or interning at a public access radio station, TV station, and they had a guy come in and do like an old time radio show, but it was just him. He was like a solo man.
Oh, that's amazing.
It's like a dying art kind of thing. But anyway, so you're helping keep alive. Go ahead and tell us how you're doing that.
Yeah. So when I was younger, I first kind of got interested in radio through my uncle showing me talk radio, Coast to Coast AM, more specifically. So I've always kind of tried to find things like that, or have that feeling of just, especially late night. I would listen to all kinds of talk radio, even just whatever was on. It could even be conservative talk radio, and just to hear some guy who's still up at 2 a.m. and he's angry about the ACLU.
Oh, he's
and
really
the early,
angry. He's
and he has
really
no
angry.
and he's got a phone, and he's not going anywhere. And it was just such a funny thing to just be like, man, there's all these weird people out there. And I found you remember one of our friends from high school, Silva. We all kind of made music together.
Yeah, of course.
Yeah, we were working on a project together, and he started putting in all these samples into it, and just ones like "and now mystery theater," all these
Yeah.
old timey, like they have that canned microphone filter sound, and I was
Yeah.
like, "This sounds super cool. What is that?" And he was just showing me, "Yeah, it's this old radio play," and I went home and started just deep diving these, like listening to any that I could get my hands on at the time. And when I came back like a month or so later, I was just like, "These are amazing. Like, have you listened to this episode, that?" And he's just like, "I have never listened to any of those in my life." And so then I'd become obsessed with something that I was the only person to talk to about at some point. And there's like already a really good in the horror genre, like people that have a really good pre-existing knowledge of like directors, who actors, writers that are all involved in different projects, but that really doesn't exist with old time radio right now. And if it is, it's kind of like exactly what I'm guilty of doing right now is someone's hobby attempt to catalog it because
Right.
it's so vast. I mean, it's an insane amount of content to look through.
Well, I'm sure, and it's definitely by no means documented half as well as any podcast is today. You know what I mean? Like it's not
Right.
it wasn't as readily available to know all the people who were involved in something. Not everybody was getting credit back then anyways.
Right. Right. Right.
But then also like just from like the shit that stuff was recorded onto is disintegrating. And
Yeah.
a lot of it hasn't been digitized. Much of it has been lost to history before digital media even became a thing, even before they could be digitized.
Well, yeah, and I mean, even like just the concept of having like a home library and things like that. I mean, that was relatively recent in that time. I mean, they used to have Hollywood burn days where they would play a movie as many times as they were going to in the theater circuit, and it would pick up dust in a warehouse in a back lot, and they were like, "We got to burn this celluloid. We got to make room for the next ones." And every once in a while, every copy's gone, and that's how we ended up with lost films as well. So
Yeah,
same
sure.
sort of deal. Like
Yeah,
London After Midnight, that's a big horror movie that they just have pictures of. They can prove it
that's
exists, but
it's fucking crazy.
till some guy finds it in his basement or attic,
Yeah,
whichever.
right. Right.
Yeah.
The deep cut lost copy,
Mhm.
director's edition, director's cut.
Right.
But so like when you're is this something where you like you have the affinity for horror movies? And I mean, even as a kid, I remember you'd be able to have like the details and specifics, the liner notes of the movie, who was involved with it.
Mhm.
And it's something. I mean, I'm the same way about music. Like I
Right.
know the
Right.
people who produced this record or that record.
Mhm.
I am equally that way. But I didn't become that cognizant until much later in life. And I always remembered that about you. You were always like super into it. Was this one of those things where, as a kid, because we were like pre-internet, were you just doing whatever you could to find information out about these? Were you like trying to sneak the movies at Blockbuster? Like how did you amass that knowledge at the age of 10?
What reading the backs of covers of a lot of movie at
Ah,
Blockbuster.
yeah.
But I mean, also my parents were really cool about they were like, "Oh, you guys got good head on your shoulders. You can pretty much watch whatever you want." And it was pretty rare that they're like, "Nope, not this."
Yeah.
But so we were really well rounded in that regard. But it's I mean, all that stuff like you brought up music and all that. I think there's always that fascination with anything that kind of resembles like a Wild West period. Like people like talking about music for that same reason, where it's just there's all these people just throwing out ideas and like anyone could have made it. These guys did.
Yeah,
Uh,
right.
and I don't know. I think that that's something with movies, music, and everything with that. It's interesting to know the players involved and the history of how they got there.
Yeah, for sure. And horror movies especially. Like my wife's a huge horror movie fan. I don't think she likes any other genre except horror. which
Oh
I have
yeah,
no
yeah.
complaints about. We will happily sit down and watch every new horror movie that comes out.
My
But
wife is
very,
the same way.
it's great. It's great. I've always found horror movies to be fun, especially because I know they're like, I've never been scared by horror movies. I've always enjoyed them from the production value. And for me, gorier the better. The more obnoxious the gore, the more pleased I will be. And one thing I kind of miss, I was watching the 2011 remake of The Thing,
Oh yeah, yeah,
and it was fine, but I
yeah. Mhm.
couldn't help but think, damn, that original still holds up. Like that
Oh yeah,
practical effect, 80s. I guess that's not even the original. The original was in the 60s, but the
yeah,
80s.
yeah.
When I think of the original, I think of the Kurt Russell in the 80s.
Right. And you talked about watching horror movies pre-internet and things like that, not being able to just look up everything on the fly.
Yeah,
A qu-
right. How was this
One,
made? How did they do this? Yeah.
yeah, I remember watching the original Halloween, and there's a scene in it where Laurie Strode's babysitting the kids, and then the title screen for The Thing comes up, and in the original The Thing from Another World, it's done I mean, John Carpenter totally mimicked it. So I saw this as a kid and I was like, how did that happen? Because he didn't make this movie. Like I was just, short circuiting as a 10-year-old because I didn't know the answers. It was like a big magic trick. And then you're like, oh, he was just like, yeah, I'll rip that off. That's cool.
Yeah,
You
no
know?
big deal.
Yeah, not at all.
It's art, dude.
Yeah, man.
That is amazing. So I guess the another thing I want to kind of unpack here too is like the power of radio. You kind of said it before. Like for me, one of the things I have always loved about that era is that was the first mass media. It was before TV. It was before the internet. It was before any of this stuff. So like the value of what that brought to society was immense, but then the dangers that it brought to society, like we were tasting the dangers of mass media from the beginning. And the biggest
Yeah.
example I can think of that is something like War of the Worlds.
Yeah. Yeah.
And
And that's, oh, go ahead.
no, I'm just wondering, like, your thoughts on that thing being used at that time, and really, like, of those forms of mass media, it kind of held its dominance for the longest until the internet. Like
Nah,
TV had a moment, but I feel like radio kind of
there was,
lasted longer.
yeah, there was an old interview with Don Knotts too, from the Andy Griffith Show, all that. And he was talking about, he started on radio, and he was talking about when TV first came out and how, you'd film something and you wouldn't see it for months. And by the time you forgot about it, he was like, I was at some party, and everybody was like, Don, you're on TV. And then he's like, so like 20 people are crowded around a 5-inch black and white television set that looked awful because it was one of the first ones. And he was just saying that he remembered one of his friends being like, this TV thing's just a fad. Like,
Yeah.
nothing's going to kill radio. And, but I mean, even though, it was a very, very useful and still a very important tool. And especially around that time when, one of the things that I was talking about, in the videos recently was the Hollywood blacklist that, was taking place like in the 40s, 50s.
Like McCarthyism, McCarthy era Red Scare shit.
Exactly.
Yeah,
And,
yeah.
and that was anybody who was in the, radio writers, union at the time.
Communist.
Yeah, at
Damn communists.
the Department of Un-American Activities is actually that sounds like a cartoon,
Yeah,
real.
seriously.
And they were monitoring this, and that's why like tons of those shows, there was one that I was just talking about, Murder by Experts. They just never really secured good ad space or marketing or support because nobody wanted to work with them
Yeah,
at that
right.
point because their primary writer was in that union. They had no other reason. And
It's fucking hilarious, dude. History's
yeah,
hilarious.
but yeah, when they did the Hollywood blacklist, they made it like a ton of writers, directors, screenwriters that they thought, or not screenwriters, sorry, script writers for the show. They thought that they were involved in the Communist Party in any way. If they could put them on there, they couldn't work at all. So they were just out of work for years and years and years. And that's why Hyman Brown, he was a producer of old time radio shows. That's when he was the one who brought back CBS Radio Mystery Theater for that purpose, because he was also blacklisted along with a ton of other people he worked with. So that was a revival of old time radio, but also they could all finally work again.
Yeah,
So,
right. An excuse for them to have an occupation. Yeah.
yeah, But
So with
but then,
with the TikTok, like, what are you drawing on the stories that you know? Have you had to start like buying books to amass knowledge on this stuff? Are you still just watching videos on YouTube? Like, where do you go? Where are the repositories for this history and this information, other than the existing recordings that you can probably find on YouTube or public access somewhere? Where is the repository for this info?
oh, I mean, I've just been listening to these for like 15, actually probably longer than that, years. As soon as I started office work and I needed something to listen to,
No,
I don't know.
perfect. Yeah,
Yeah,
absolutely.
and I don't know what it was, but like listened to music for a while, and then at some point I was just like, I I need something else just to kind of coast through the day. And then I started getting into radio plays, and just years and years of listening to them. And I mean, they're just really fun. There's something cool about it. I was talking about it before, where it's like borrowing a well-read book, because it's generally somebody's, a copy, a recording that they made off their radio at home, at a certain place in time. You'll catch old ads in there that were playing at the time, old news reports and things like that. And it's weird. You're just like, you're hanging out with somebody you've never met in their living room, you know.
Yeah, kind of.
Via,
Right,
well,
right,
not
like
not
the old
exactly.
times, just like the
Yes.
old times, right around the radio.
Yeah, right. And it's just
9 out of 10 doctors agree. Smoke Lucky Strike cigarettes.
oh man, they got some bangers on there. When you hear the jingle for the spaghetti store, like, you will lose your mind, dude. I mean,
It's
my
just
God.
dude. It's so funny to me, like the novelty, like society as a whole, just how we shift from thing to thing. But that era, like 1920s radio era. Betty White started on radio. Like this is how long ago we're talking. We're talking a long time ago. And
Yeah,
I just like, it's like some of the most overtly sexist, some of the most like square, but also it, like by today's standards, with the drinking and the violence toward women. I don't know. Like there are elements of it was lawless. Like it was
yeah,
lawless. There were no regulations like there are
yeah.
today. There are no societal well, I mean there were in some respects, but I don't know. It's just so lawless, that particular area of broadcast.
The funny thing is, it's like there were regulations in place. They're all just different than they are today. Now it's like, oh my God. But I mean, there's ones that you'll listen to on there where, if you go back early enough, I think Suspense is one of them, if not Inner Sanctum, where you'll literally hear like propaganda ads on there about
Wow.
the Japanese, and it's
War.
wild. And
Yep. Sure.
yeah,
No, dude, totally. 100%.
yeah, and it's and I mean, it's also one of those things where, that's you were talking about the first like mass media exposure to everybody. I mean, you can look back and just see how the war and government influence the control of that tool for the public. And it's just one of those things, for people that like conspiracy theories. I mean, it's definitely not impossible for that sort of stuff to be happening now, and I'm sure it does all the time.
No, no, no. I don't. I think it would be naive to assume anything like that at any point in its uh, uh, pursuit to 100 million listeners or viewers. I don't think anything like that is influence free. And 100% the government understood that the radio, especially the radio, but definitely TV when TV comes along, were going to be required tools of warfare. That's how you persuade the public opinion. Before that, it was newspapers, but radios can get into people's 1 second. It can get from an idea in New York to somebody's radio in the middle of the country somewhere. So it's it really changed the game, and it absolutely. This isn't necessarily radio, but I got down the rabbit hole of the propaganda films that used to show before movies during that time period, and I went down like the rabbit hole of just like trying to chase down as many of them as I could, and they're so ridiculous. Like you just be a kid going to see a cartoon. And,
Yep.
it'd be like some horrible war footage and how the Americans need to stomp out Hitler and kill the Japanese, dead bodies everywhere. And here's your Mickey Mouse movie.
Yeah.
It's just hilarious to me. I don't know.
And,
Man.
and that's wild how like that's how old movies used to be shown. You came in, they had a news broadcast, a tiny like serial film to keep you interested, another news broadcast, and they're just like, you can have some ice cream, man, but you're eating your vegetables today.
Yeah, right. Exactly.
You know,
Exactly. Well,
we need you to hear this.
again, it's like 100%. I kind of steering it back towards War of the Worlds. There's a piece of me that's like, was War of the Worlds this unintended thing, like this unintended chaos causer, or was it a deliberate psychological operation? Because like you have to think too, when they start, and this is I feel like heavily documented at this point, anytime there's a new mass media and anytime anyone starts to experiment with the efficacy of influencing people using that medium, there's always like the unintended consequence. Like they're literally testing shit. Like nuclear bombs are the same thing. How could we know what nuclear bombs are going to do to the bubble of planet Earth unless we set off a bunch of nuclear bombs? That's the only way we figure it out. So in my view, that's definitely how radio was used wherever it emerged at that time period. Every government was like, how do we make these people not ever want to not be listening, but not even know that they're being influenced and being told what to do and told what to buy, told how to behave, told who to vote for? You know what I mean? I don't know if that has ever not been a component of it. I know it's a known thing now that at newspapers and TV stations, there's like an intelligence analyst, like somebody from CIA or FBI that just sits there and, you know, the pretense is they sit there to make sure that they don't leak any like sensitive information. But we all know what's really going on there. The CIA is like, here's what you need to print.
Yeah.
Print that. Print this.
Man, I done a little bit of research on the topic that we talked about today, and the main thing that I've concluded about the CIA is they are just like professional pranksters.
Dude,
Some
that's
things they do
That's it.
are just absolute like. I swear that they were like, oh, dude, you know what would really piss off the Philippines?
100%.
They have nothing better
100%.
to do.
Dude,
It's insane.
Dude, think about this. Think about this. Let's strap a bunch of people to chairs and dose them with LSD and see what happens.
I am
telling you,
in.
Yes. Write me up a report. Let's get this plan going.
Why not? Why not?
But when you told me about this is something I'd heard like on the periphery, but I'd never dug into.
Right.
When you had told me about it, I was immediately like, oh, okay, 100%. And then I was telling you I watched that one documentary, but the one documentary really went into the history of the folklore and, like we were talking before the show, the multiple manifestations of the Ashwang, right?
I heard Aswang, but I heard
Aswang.
people say it both ways, so I don't know.
Okay. Well, let's go with Aswang. That sounds more scholarly. Let's for sure go with Aswang.
It's a real gyro gyro situation.
Yes. Yeah. Who knows, you know?
Could be anybody.
Go ahead and melt my brain here. Let's go. Let's do this.
Okay, so as far as I remember in this, we start with the Philippines occupied by Japan, and America comes over there to help them, get rid of them. But the thing is, like, while Japan has them occupied, the like upper politicians in the Philippines, they were kind of really cooperating with them and helping them destroy their own people in exchange for like currying favor with the Japanese for better treatment for themselves during and after the war. So when America came over and got the Japanese out, then they were like, hey, these guys are, oh, what? They're still in charge. Everybody that all these politicians that you've grown to distrust, they're in charge right now. And the people didn't like that. So there was the Huck that were freedom fighters out there that were just basically trying to overthrow the government for whatever reason. The best idea that they come up with, Edward Lansdale walks into the room and is just like, guys, vampires. But I mean, it's it's deeper than that. But he had a lot of experience with the cultural surroundings in the Philippines, so he knew that like their folklore, like we were saying earlier, since the 16th century, this has been something that parents told their kids about, grandparents,
Deeply
everybody.
entrenched in the psyche. Deeply entrenched
Exactly.
in the psyche. Yeah.
One of the documentaries, there's a part where a guy's talking about how he knows people from the Philippines that are just, if they talk about a ghost or something, they're as skeptical as anyone else would be. They're just like, that doesn't exist. That's ridiculous. But then you talk about an aswang, and it's just something that is like accepted as
right.
reality.
Right.
And Edward Lansdale knew this. So what they decided to do is they planted, people in the towns that these freedom fighters were coming in to get aid from, and they just started spreading these rumors about, they saw an aswang on the mountain, and the CIA sent in a team of people, and while the Huck were on patrol, they went up to the back guy in one of the groups, dragged him into the bushes, punctured his neck, hung him upside down, drained his blood, and then took his body back out there and left it on the trail for them to find. And a few days later, they came out of the mountains and surrendered because
Holy shit.
Edward Lansdale is an animal. And I mean, and it could have been the vampire thing, but it's also very possible they were just like, did you see what Lansdale just pulled off? I'm not camping around this man.
Exactly.
Yeah. Either way, it's too much. It's, they had
I just love how batshit that is, and it absolutely is accurate. Like the CIA's job, especially the CIA's disinformation. That's their whole purpose is the control of information and misinformation.
Mhm.
And I wouldn't be shocked if at somewhere in there, in that frat of bros who are running that institution, they're not like, hold my beer. You think that was stupid? Let me show you stupid. You think they won't believe that? Watch, I'll do it for less than $100 million. I'll get them to believe that. Like, that is absolutely an element of that country in there for sure.
Oh yeah. Let me show you what kind of ball I can get over the fence.
Yeah, no, 100%. 100%.
Yeah. It gets even wilder after that too, because once this is all done and settled, Lansdale had made or I guess had grown a close relationship with whatever this one politician in the Philippines, and basically was just like, hey, I think you should run for president or whatever. He's like, oh, great. And then they got him the campaign. They smeared all of his components. And after that, they were just like, the CIA was like, okay, so we're writing all your speeches. You're doing whatever we want. Yeah. And that's exactly it. He was a puppet for the CIA. And Lansdale apparently even like beat this man up one time for like, I think he was talking about possibly doing a speech that was written by someone else in the Philippines. And he was just like, well, here's my thoughts on that, sir.
My gentle, reasonable thoughts. I think this is important to note. This is Lansdale, right?
Uh-huh.
Yeah, this guy looks like, oh my God, he was born on the same day as me. Damn.
Oh.
That is a punch in the dick. This guy looks like no fun.
I mean, no, not at all.
No
Well,
fun.
and that's the thing. You know, his main idea was using their beliefs against them. You know,
Yeah. Well, dude,
so what would Lansdale do to me? Like Lansdale's
yeah,
gonna
right, right.
everything I hold dear.
This, I guess, this is the thing that I always like. It's funny to think that we did this to other countries, but there's two problems. It's funny to think we behave this way to other countries, but to think that it's not being done onto us in return by other countries is different. Like, because of how we behaved, we are treated rather poorly because of what these CIA folks have done for the past 70 years. But also, they do it to us. Like, we're the experimenters. Before they can take their fancy new techniques abroad, they test them on us. Like, documented history that they just fucking use us as the testing bay.
Yeah. Well,
And I think here, I just want to touch on this super briefly.
Yeah.
Like, I get why in the Philippines there's like components of jungle and desert areas of this world that we just don't know because humans don't spend time there. We're not suited. I understand why in the Philippines, if there are bats this big, why it's 100% reasonable to think that they're fucking vampires. And it's the same thing with like cultures in South America on the periphery of the Amazon, or as you get deeper into the Amazon, they're like, dude, you have no idea. You think that's the biggest snake? Bro, there's like this like crazy idea that somewhere deep in a Congoian jungle, there are still dinosaurs, or there is one specific species of dinosaur that has still remained alive because it's just so dense, literally no one goes there.
Damn.
But I understand like why this lore is effective, because in these spaces it's not just lore. You know, like there are creatures that you or I or any American would see and be like, that's not from this planet. That's completely alien.
Yeah. But there's also, I mean, you know, just it's also really easy to cling to like a belief of the unknown in that way. I mean, you know, it's like kids, you know, you forgot about, or you realized Santa Claus was fake long before, you know, you were ever like, I'm still scared to walk down this hallway. Like, you know, you're always that like sense of fear is always around, and it's easy to assign it to something, I guess. But I mean, even my wife's her friend is from the Philippines. Her mom's you know, was born and raised there, and she had mentioned, you know, I had asked her, you know, can you ask her if she knows anything about it, they believe in it, and her mom's like, oh yeah, 4 years ago, like straight up, was leaving a friend's house playing Scrabble, riding on a motorcycle, saw a normal person walking down the road. And then when they turned, they said she was floating and her hair was in the air, and they drove off and never went back. So people still legitimately believe this, like right now. It's not, this isn't like an old superstition.
Yeah, no, sure.
It's like very current.
Well, but I guess what I mean to say is, like, if we lived in the dense jungle where there is unknown shit, and like the idea that there's beings in this jungle right here that could snatch me at them, we don't even know. No one's seen them all. We just don't even know. That might weigh into my decision to like, or my ability to discern, what is this? Is this a creature I haven't seen, or is this some goddamn ghost thing that's shapeshifted and is going to eat my soul?
I got confused. I thought you were talking about growing up in Florida, and I was just like, all right.
Hey, dude, there's something similar. There's something similar, because I remember when I lived in Florida as a kid, there was like a layer of, I want to play outside, but I have to look out for rattlesnakes. I want to play out. I want to play outside, but I don't get too close to the water because that gator might come up and snatch you. Like that was absolutely an element, but even that is like, you know, that was pale in comparison to the untouched jungles of the Philippines. You know?
They're really living in raw land. It's just wild.
It's crazy. Courtney, another one of the things she gets really into is like animal attacks, shark attacks. And also recently, there's been a bunch of, for a number of reasons, there's a bunch of strange shark behaviors globally. But one of the things that's been happening is like very large sharks getting caught on video. And the prevailing idea there is the bigger creatures are deeper down. We don't spend much time deeper down. But as you make your way to the surface, the creatures get smaller. And as humans have been like destroying the ecosystem up top, that filters down. And now some of these bigger creatures that would normally stay lower have to come up a little bit higher to get their food. So they've been capturing these great white sharks that are just monsters, 30, 40 feet, like huge. Like we're talking, there's like some satellite pictures of sharks that could be megalodon level. Like they're huge sharks.
That's wild. Well, they can live forever too, right? I mean, like hundreds and hundreds of years.
Yeah, 100%.
I mean, well, obviously, I'm not asking about the ones that we don't know exist, But
but even known sharks, like and sea turtles and octopuses and squid. Squid, the same thing. There's been in the past couple of years, there's been a bunch of capturings of very large, large tentacled beings, estimated, 40, 50, 60, 70, 80 feet, like huge squids, mostly near like oil rigs or like underwater oil rigs with cameras and stuff.
That is pretty amazing. I mean, anything in the deep ocean terrifies me. The fact that it's getting closer all the time. I mean, it's at your doorstep. You're gonna turn around, you're gonna step outside.
The Kraken's gonna be knocking down our door.
You're gonna get your socks wet. It's too late by that point. Man, there's that is wild though. I mean, like where exactly are these sharks? I'm asking for a friend. I want to make sure they're like not too close to any apartments in Gainesville.
Well, no, definitely not in Gainesville yet.
Yeah, okay.
Depending on what the sea level is. No, these are like I want to say it's all Pacific Ocean sightings of these like major, and then like around Asian countries, Japan, Philippines, Thailand, and of course Australia, like all Pacific area. But dude, it's just like there's so much, especially of the ocean. The jungles are one thing. Like we have satellites that can cover anything on planet Earth. They could capture a picture of it, but very few humans are going into the middle of the jungle because we can't make it there. Very few humans are going to explore even a little bit further than what we have in the ocean because humans just can't. It's an inhabitable space for humans unless you have an Ocean Gate submarine. Ocean Gate submarines, reliable submarines for everyone. This program is sponsored by Ocean Gate.
They're definitely within your budget. It's fine. Don't worry. But no, it is amazing that like I mean we've successfully been able to go to space, land on the moon, come back, and there's still places on Earth that we just can't get to. It's pretty impressive. And it's I remember following that submarine story, and I just trying to like get the amount of pressure that happens down there, just trying to understand that. How it's just like pretty much as soon as this guy starts fumbling with his PlayStation 2 controller, I guess it's just lights out. Is that what happened?
Their experience down there was short.
Yeah,
there's insane. There's no way a death down there is agonizing. Like it's over before you even know it, and it's horrifying, dude. You bring up space, and it's a good comparison because it's a similar kind of situation. You're almost equally as isolated. And you're in just as much danger, and if something happens, you're fucked.
Yeah, you can't live without assistance. You can't breathe without assistance.
Yeah, and the pressure is a good thing. Like your body can't even sustain the pressure of all that water being on top of you. That's what's trippy. So like all these things. I understand how we can still be afraid of things from this planet or unknown things on this planet. But being somebody who's well versed in the lexicon of horror,
Mm.
if any of the horror creatures are real, which ones do you think they would be real, and where would they be, or why?
Which horror creatures are real and which?
Right, like so
Oh,
zombies.
probably
Do you think zombies are going to be real? Do you think we're going to see like reanimated dead creatures at some point? Do you think that's going to be a thing?
probably serial killers. That's probably the number one.
Definitely.
But
Ugh,
number
yeesh.
two, yeah. Um, I don't know. That's a really good question. It's also like those things where you talk about like those giant bats out there, how they could be like, they could think that's a vampire. I mean, maybe there's a giant wolf out there that somebody's like, oh, he's. I mean, there's all kinds of animals that haven't been discovered, so I would think that would be the closest thing. Like, some. I mean, I'm not personally saying a Sasquatch. I don't. I
But
don't claim to
you
believe.
could you
I
could you
could.
could say that. Yeah,
I'm gonna say Sasquatch. I think it's.
yeah,
Yeah.
definitely. Get double down. I'm going to double down on that answer now.
I'll double down. I'm also gonna start calling him Big Feet instead of Bigfoot.
Plural.
Yeah, I mean, he's got to. I don't know
Yeah.
why we should have been doing this before.
Yeah, it's not singular. I mean,
Yeah.
there's another one too. Like I'm not necessarily like a hard believer. I also feel, just as a side note, of the documentaries about Bigfoot that exist, there aren't very many good ones. There's tons of good documentaries about most of. There was a bunch of good documentaries about the Aswang. All right,
Oh yeah,
There's tons of great documentaries.
they're
Haven't seen a good
amazing.
one about Bigfoot.
No, I mean, he's trying out there. Big Feet. He can only do what he can do. Man. He needs a better team.
Yeah, right. And he also needs like another 1,500 years of lore because he's pretty young.
Mhm.
I mean, I guess not if we're counting like Sasquatch and all the Yeti, like all the depictions of ape-like
Yeah.
man.
The Legend of Boggy Creek. All that. I mean, it's
you know,
all him.
you know, when I think of, I don't necessarily. Okay, when I think of horror movies, I think of the stories that are unsettling to me, and The Thing is pretty unsettling to me
Mm.
because of how hopeless it is. And
Yeah.
you never know like who's the thing.
Mm.
And like as things get weirder in this layer of reality that we occupy, I feel like at some point the shapeshifter, like if there's a thing from horror movies that becomes the thing incarnate, it's going to be maybe not the thing, but some shapeshifter type being who
Yeah.
can fool our sensory perception. You know what I mean?
I can see that happening. Some kind of bot fly situation.
Yeah.
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 They can slightly take control, right? A little bit.
Well, and all the types of experimentation that are for sure going on.
Well,
And
yeah.
even so, like I was watching Blue Planet or one of the David Attenborough documentaries, and
Yeah.
he was talking about like this parasite that'll just take over a bug's body and will
Yeah.
just literally live its whole life just moving around in this bug's body like the bug is its car, you know. And
What a
then
jerk. What a jerk.
what a jerk. And I don't know if you're a fan of Last of Us,
Mhm.
but there was like some news report recently about that cordyceps, that particular type of mushroom, uh, uh, like some Last of Us shit, like an actual real news report about cordyceps effect on the brain or some shit.
That's pretty amazing. I mean, I could also see it being some kind of like, cybernetic deal. You were
Mm.
talking about the like that situation of it controlling somebody. There was if you look at backyardbrains.com, it's like a place that they sell um basically science projects to a lot of universities that have engineering students, and one of the things that they sell is this kit that is it's basically for you to take a cockroach and you put it in an ice bath, and after it's, I guess, uh, dormant. I can't remember. After it's just chilled out, you take sandpaper and scrape the top of its head, and it has a microchip that you literally glue onto this thing, and then you can control it. Like, it'll walk, and you can make it slightly go left or right. But dude, you can go on there, and they have a YouTube video of it. It's kind of terrifying because you're like, this is something you could do to a cockroach in your home. Like, you could just set it up and hook it. Somebody has a much better version of this.
Yep. 100%. To think that
Yeah.
that is not being developed somewhere in some shadowy bunker,
Mm-hmm.
or to think like, okay, so humans are doing that to insects. Zoom out. What is the layer of existence above humanity doing to humans?
Yep.
Like, and how clueless would humans be, especially when we know how clueless humans are to the actions of other humans to influence behavior. Kind of tying back into the radio conversation, like,
Yeah.
how many things in particular around the wartime, but like, how many things has humanity chosen to do itself, and how many of it has it been steered like by some cockroach conducting, intelligence agent
Yeah.
putting out a radio broadcast or a news broadcast. Like, how much of human behavior has actually been human behavior, and how much of it has been
An outside
influenced.
force.
Yeah,
Yeah.
influenced, if you want to go like.
Yes. And I mean, if we're talking is in terms of aliens or anything like that, there's is that where you're going, I assume, or is this
Well, yeah, no,
CIA?
it could be aliens, it could be intelligence agencies.
Yeah.
I just think of like, humans like to think we're so incapable of being manipulated, but we're manipulated all times of the day, every
Oh, yeah.
day. And we're barely more cognizant than dogs. In fact,
Yeah.
you train humans very similar in the way that you train dogs. That's
Yeah.
not a coincidence,
Right.
And I just think that we're not the biggest fish. We're never the biggest fish, and whether that means citizens to an intelligence agency,
Right.
shadowy government agencies, or
Yes.
whether that means like we're not the only being in the food chain that's near the top.
Right, for sure. E.G. Marshall, in one of his science fiction's episode, when they were talking about aliens coming in, he was talking about how there's more stars in the sky than there are people on Earth, and how it's just crazy to think that in all those, like, that there couldn't be something else. Even if it's just a fungus, some type of life going on is pretty insane. Like, it's a small possibility that it's just us out here. But
Yeah. I mean, numerically, the numbers would suggest that there's some other. I mean, even on this planet Earth too. This is another Earth documentary find, but they were talking about life forms that are on volcanic plumes in the ocean that are arsenic based. They're not carbon based. That's on this planet. Yet again, it's in a portion of the ocean that's too deep for people to go check out. So like, I don't even know how it is they determine this, or how long it took them to determine these things existed and were arsenic based. But just on this planet, we know that carbon based life forms are not the only life forms. So I don't know. For me, I understand I'm the plebe. I understand at least 50% of my thoughts probably are not my own. I am being conducted in more ways than I would probably I would like to accept. But just as like a thought exercise, I've always kind of liked to unpack that. And definitely with regards to like mass media, entertainment, every Hollywood heavily influenced. You know what I mean? There were messages coded in all sorts of movies, not just the propaganda that would play before the movie in the movie theater. It was like within the movie, the movies that they made, all those war movies that they made, all the it's all, you know, there's always some there's some trick being played. There's I don't know, like back to what you were saying about the CIA being like these tricksters. There's always a trick being played, and these things exist to deliberately to, like, you know, be sparkly in front of our eyes, distract us.
Personally, I don't know what you're talking about because I've never been lied to. I have just. I think you should have a Budweiser and buy a Buick.
Yeah, right. Exactly. Exactly.
You know,
Put on your preferred news program and just relax.
just let it roll over you.
It's just I don't know. I guess it's why I've always liked anti-establishment media. I've always liked anti-establishment comedians. You know what I mean? Like I could never, whenever I would watch the establishment TV shows or the establishment whatevers, I'd be like, this is so clearly just here to get me to buy a General Electric microwave. They made this whole show. They got writers in a room. They scripted and cast an entire TV show to sell me a fucking microwave, and somebody's going to buy it. I'm not. This one, because I just bought one. I just bought a new microwave. But some asshole out there is going to buy the next new microwave. It's probably going to be me. I need to get a new microwave. My old microwave just broke, so.
You could just move to air fryers. Just fuck it. Never go back. Just. Oh, man. I see in your comments somebody brought up JB Bottles in the Italian horror movies, and I feel bad. I have no idea.
Oh, gee, who? The Death Metal Podcast. Sick podcast name. Love that.
It's super dope. But yeah, I don't know about that. I mean, I love Italian horror movies, but you know.
Hang on. Let's look this up. Thank you for this suggestion, Death Metal Podcast. We're looking it up right now. JB Bottles in the Italian horror movies. Let's see what comes up when we search this guy. Down a chat thread rabbit hole. Here we go. If a film from the 1970s featured gratuitous nudity and stylishly tacky decor, there's a good chance a JB Bottle might have been found somewhere on screen. The pulpy Italian thrillers of the 1960s and 70s, known as Giallo films, have also been identified as J&B hothouses. So you're telling me that there was a conspiracy to sell J&B scotch in Italian horror movies? I love that. I immediately love everything about that.
That's fucking hysterical, and I'm so upset that I didn't know that, but I'm so happy I do now.
Yeah, no, seriously, good fucking call, Death Metal Podcast. That is genius.
Oh my god. It's probably, I'm sure that they're in Torso. They're probably in all kinds of those movies.
Oh my gosh, there's a whole video on it. All right, I'm not going to play this for copyright reasons, but that's amazing.
This scotch is way too hard to be on camera right now.
Yeah, I don't want to get sued by J&B, but if they did, I'm sure it'd be a waste of their time and their money. So,
bottom line is, we're not doing anything provocative enough to justify having a J&B bottle on camera.
Kinda, yeah. They don't want to see my nipples. They already told me that.
Oh, damn. Well, I haven't heard back. I emailed them though. They didn't reach out.
Just waiting on a response.
You know, I mean, the zipper anytime.
Well, that is hilarious. Thank you for that suggestion, Death Metal Podcast. But that, I guess, again, just kind of drives home the point. If it wasn't trying to sell some type of government idea or national idea, it was advertising, clearly. And that's why the advertisers have always, we made the Lucky Strike cigarette joke earlier, but like media has always confounded me because of how oppressive the messaging is. It's like, feel this way, feel this way, feel this way, feel the opposite way and buy this thing. Feel this way, feel this way, feel the opposite way and buy this thing. It's always had like this element of bipolar that it never made sense to me.
Yeah.
Even old time radio. I like listening to old time radio programs. I'm like, what the fuck? Murder mystery. So and so who did it? And now make sure you buy Palmolive dish soap. You don't want your baby eating on a dish that hasn't been cleaned with Palmolive dish soap.
Oh yeah, but I love that batshit insanity. That
It's hilarious. I'm not
Yeah.
saying it's not hilarious. I'm just saying it's always like I've never been able to reconcile like watching the show or hearing the program about some dark, somber subject, immediately cut to
buy a
the
Buick.
the new medicine that's gonna make you feel super great or shit your brains out forever.
Yeah.
I don't know. It's just strange.
I really want to if I can. I mean, I don't know if it's doable to just play a song right now if I send you a link. But
Oh, we can definitely do that. I might get hit, but fuck it, it doesn't matter. Let's
there's
hear it.
no way that you're gonna get hit by this because this is a spaghetti store song. The spaghetti store is not open, as far as I know. I think
Sick.
this spaghetti door or just the spaghetti store has shut its doors. Or hold on, and I'm going to send you this because I'm subscribed to this one man on YouTube, and I don't know anything else he has, but he's the only person that I saw who has this, and it has a picture of his cat on it, who I guess is the infamous meatball thief Tony.
Immediately sold.
Yes, so this is all totally worth it. Just wait a minute. Any second. Oh my god. If you have, do you have a joke?
Dun, 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 dun. Trying to think of an old time radio song, but I can't really think of too many.
All I can think of is the spaghetti store
Yeah,
jingle.
Praise
I don't
the
know.
Lord and pass the ammunition. Praise the, that's a propaganda radio song. There you go.
Whoa, I have not heard that one.
Really? You haven't?
No.
Oh my gosh, dude, this is
Okay, so should I just
yeah. Just
should
if you shoot it to me in the private chat.
okay, oh, private chat. Here we go. Tell me that this is not the most absolute banger of a jingle. You are going to close your laptop and get spaghetti right now.
Okay, hang on. I got a fucking commercial. You remember when the internet was free?
Yeah.
We had that. We had that little brief moment where internet was free before the advertisers moved in and took over. Man, it was a simpler time. It was a simpler time. Like you could play outside next to an alligator and then go inside and surf unfiltered internet and go to rotten.com. It's a good time.
All the time.
It was a really good time.
From any library in your town.
Any library in your town, only slightly get arrested. All right, here we go.
Only a little bit.
Opera. Let's bring this up so people can see it. Here we go. The cat is already here. Here we go.
It's pretty good, right? What do you think?
Wait, here, can you hear that? Could you hear that?
I could not hear it at all.
Okay, here, hang on a second.
So long as you can hear it, that's all I care about. I've heard it a million times.
Yeah, I don't know why it's not like this isn't piping out, but this is hilarious.
Okay, yes, just enjoy it.
That is just horrifying.
You mispronounced delicious. I do.
What? Huh?
What?
You sti-
What?
What did do I got you? Is it getting jittery? I still got you.
Oh, is it me? I thought that you were responding to the spaghetti store because I couldn't hear it. So I thought it was just hitting you in layers how much you wanted spaghetti now. I'm sorry that I stopped. I really made
No.
it confusing.
I actually ate spaghetti last night, so there we go. I just wanted to fix it. I wanted to fix it so we could listen to it together.
Oh yeah.
Here we go.
If you love spaghetti like I love spaghetti, I know what you're looking for. So come on, get ready for great spaghetti at the spaghetti store. If you want spaghetti, the best spaghetti, you don't have to look no more. Get your taste buds ready for great spaghetti at the spaghetti store.
Here's a riddle for you. What has 6
6 different kinds of spaghetti. Chicken, mushroom, meat sauce, shrimp, meatballs, or a combination of any of the above.
Oh, that's easy.
And dinner prices from $2.10 to $2.85.
Still easy.
And additional selection from ravioli to steak.
Here's a riddle for you, James.
Dude, it's so
What's
good.
the answer?
The spaghetti
Isn't it
store.
the best?
Now, here's one for you. What has blue eyes and a craving for spaghetti?
Paul Newman's stomach.
No, me, meatball.
What has blue eyes and a craving for spaghetti?
Paul
Newman's
Newman's
stomach.
Killing it.
Dude,
Killing the game.
I love how that took place. That had to be a commercial from what, the 80s?
Yeah, it was either CBS's run was, I got it wrong. I think it was 74 to 82, if I'm not mistaken. But yeah, so it was somewhere in there. But I mean, the main thing is like, how is it humanly possible that they can be that good at number one, songwriting, number two, comedy, and three, making spaghetti? I mean, you can't be good at three things like that. And it seems like they're all stars.
They were all stars, and like the pipeline that existed, like this was a whole industry. There was a whole industry of people who were just writing jingles. There was a whole industry of people who were just I don't know,
Slinging spaghetti.
the infrastructure that existed to bring the people spaghetti. It's like it's a shame, it's just like Pizza Hut. Every Italian food has its restaurant, and that fails at some point.
That's true. It's a shame.
Well, we're gonna wrap it up here. We've been on for an hour. Nick, thank you for coming on here.
Thank you for having me on.
Stay on. We'll talk about the next time you come back in the next topic. But
Sounds
thank you
good.
for coming on here and talking about all this craziness. This has been the Totally Legitimate Business Podcast. Thank you for those that joined. Thank you for the Death Metal Podcast. We'll see you later.
This has been the Totally Legitimate Business Podcast. The end. With your host, James Oliva. Executive producers, Clint G and James Oliva. That's obnoxious. Sound design, mix, and master by James Oliva. Literally no one cares. For more Totally Legitimate Business, subscribe to our YouTube channel at Totally Legitimate Business or add us on TikTok at TLB Pod. When will this end? Thank you for listening. Now get back to work. Moving along, but